Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming today. I'm just thrilled myself to be here at AWE 2019. Such an amazing event. I've been here for the last several years in my previous role, which is head of content for HTC. And we're working on many different types of content there at HTC. So today I want to talk about some of the things that we learned over the last many years developing VR and AR solutions and content and projects, and also talk about it in terms of where the opportunities lie, where the best momentum and growth in the industry that we see happening right here in the hallways, many of the conversations, many of the companies that are actively working in this space. So here's the quick agenda. I won't spend too much time looking at this slide. Instead, we'll get right into it because we don't have much time today. I'm Joel Breton. I'm formerly the Vice President of Global Content for HTC, and I spent the last 3 years there working on a lot of different projects, which I'll go through in a moment. But prior to that, I spent my entire career creating video games. And I started back in about 1994 working on Sonic the Hedgehog and Virtua Fighter, Virtua Racer, Major League Baseball. So I learned how to develop software and entertainment on the entertainment side. So I've been lucky enough to create really tens of millions of hours of fun for players around the world, and these games and many others that I was lucky enough to work on over my career. And over the last 3 years, though, since I was recruited over there at HTC, these are some of the applications that we worked on. And so my job, once I got to Vive, was to figure out, how you build a content organization at a hardware company that had no background in content, and definitely knew how to make fantastic hardware. I think some of the earliest smartphones that HTC made and the first Android smartphone were extremely innovative hardware products, right? And then the Vive was certainly the first room scale full solution for full presence VR delivered to the marketplace as well. So HTC had this history of creating fantastic hardware, but absolutely no experience developing software and content. So they brought me in from the video game industry and said, okay, you figure out what we should do with the content side of the business. And so we did a couple of things. First of all, we felt we need to really bring the big brands and the big IP and the sort of AAA content creators to VR, and certainly to Vive. And so we started talking to folks like Warner Brothers and Disney and Rockstar and Bethesda. And through all those conversations, we were able to bring some fantastic content to VR. For notably, Fallout 4 was part of that discussion that we did with Bethesda. LA Noire, the VR case files came from Rockstar. And then, of course, Warner Brothers, we did the partnership for Ready Player One, the Oasis beta, and that was actually one of the more fun games that got created last year in VR. So we had those entertainment kind of landmark pieces that we brought into the marketplace. But at the same time, we wanted to also build out a very broad and diverse number of use cases in terms of the different applications and useful apps that you could use in VR that would be better in VR than on desktop or mobile. And through this process, we started discovering that it probably wasn't a 50-50 split in terms of consumer and enterprise applications. It actually started going more and more onto the B2B side. And what I mean by that is some of these applications that we were developing and we were thinking they were for the consumer market. I'll take TrueScale, for example, here. This was an interior design application that was very useful for laying out and designing your internal space, whether that be a bedroom, an apartment, an office building, or a gymnasium. And so we found that businesses were using these applications in very, very meaningful ways that would help their businesses and help their bottom line. So we started focusing even more on those types of applications, and looking for ways that we could help these businesses grow and to help the industry thrive. Well, one of the companies that we partnered with was Sixense, and they had this really amazing 3D modeling program called Make VR. And they had it in a fairly good state, but it was not ready to release, and they needed a partner to come and help them publish it and finish it up. So we joined them at Vive Studios, became the publisher, and I got to work with Sixense very closely as we finished up Make VR, turned it into Make VR Pro, and launched it as a very useful 3D modeling application that you can design solid 3D models and then send them to a 3D printer and print them out. So that was my first introduction to Sixense, and I'm very pleased to say that after working with them for several years, I've decided to join them and now head up the software development studio called Sixense Studios. And we're thrilled to be working with many companies that I was already introduced to with my role there at Vive, but there's some really great use cases that I want to talk to you about today, and that's what I'm going to run through on this presentation. So just taking a step back, right, I personally believe, and there's several other folks in the industry that believe this as well, that we're in the third computing paradigm right now. I did hear some of the earlier speakers today allude to this, but simply put, if you look at this adoption curve of technologies, of major technologies since 1900s, right, there's been some great technologies that come through here, right? Electricity, that's pretty good. We're still using that. It's been adopted pretty widely. Color TVs, that was also proved to be pretty useful. People sort of got the idea there, and that got up to 100% adoption. And then, personal computers came along, and that kind of followed a very similar adoption phase, but it steepened up a bit. If you see the adoption curve, it went up a bit steeper than some of the previous ones. And then we got to where we shrunk the computer down. Instead of needing a big PC as large as a house, we now have an iPhone or a smartphone in our pocket, which is even more powerful than those early computers. So that was the second paradigm, right, where we shrunk all this useful computing down, put it in our pocket. That was what we'll call the second paradigm. And then over here, if you look at interstage right, in the little green shoots coming out, this is the third paradigm of computing. It's VR, it's AR, it's immersive computing. So it will have an adoption curve much like these others. That's my belief, and again, some of those that are here in the industry helping to pioneer it. But we're just in the early days of it. So all of us that are here today, we get to help define what this market is going to become and where it's going to go. So for me, that's just very, very exciting, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. This is, the spectrum that I like to kind of imagine that reality experiences sit on, right? So it goes everything from hardcore, harsh reality to virtual reality, and then, of course, augmented in between. And this is useful just to kind of look at as the landscape and the hardware landscape, which is actually getting so full. As we know, just last week was an incredible week with the launch of the Rift S and the Oculus Quest, which fit right in here, on the virtual side, on the far right of this chart. And then you have the Index, which is coming to fill in there as well. Magic Leap, HoloLens 2. The hardware side is actually getting really, really full. And so for content creators like myself and many of us here, that's exciting because we have a lot of options of what to use in terms of hardware. Depending on what our use case is, we have a lot of options to choose from. So, now that there is so many great pieces of hardware out in the marketplace, now we need to start looking at the applications and creating the killer apps that will actually drive this market forward. So you'll hear me talk about full presence systems a bit today. And that's because in VR specifically, full presence is the key to unlocking the power of the technology. And if you're working in, say, enterprise training applications, this should be your bottom line that you start at, your baseline. and you shouldn't compromise from full presence. What I mean is, if you're building a 360-degree training application, I would just ask you, don't do that, because it's actually not going to be a very comfortable viewing experience. It's not going to have full presence, and it's not going to have the full power that you can actually achieve with a full presence VR system. So many of you obviously know about full presence, so if you know about that, that's fine, but I want to just give a example of a full presence system in motion. And here it is. This is from the VR zone in Tokyo. This is Mario Kart VR, and it is absolutely a full presence system, okay? What do I mean by that? What I mean is these women are actually tricked into thinking that they're on a cartoon Mario Kart chasing Bowser and throwing turtle shells at them. And they're doing that because they have mechatronics that are matching the movement of the virtual world and their cart with an actual real mechanized cart. And as you can see, it is absolutely one-to-one tied to the bumps that they're driving over. They have one-to-one tracking on their arms so that they can grab the power-ups out of the air and throw them at Bowser or at the other cart riders. And they have fantastic headsets, which offers the full immersion solution. So that is the perfect example of a full presence solution. And that is really the gold standard for what we should be looking at. This, on the other hand, is a non-full presence system. This fellow is looking at a 360 video. He's kind of laying down a little bit, so his viewpoint is up, and whereas the film viewpoint is horizontal. Each time he might move his head to the right or the left, the world moves accordingly with him, which is a very unnatural feeling. And so this is not unlocking the full power of VR, although he might be able to see, a nice film in this case. So yeah, this is the landscape that we're talking about here with immersive computing: AR, VR, MR, XR. This right here, I've busted out just kind of the top 50 use cases and industries that we're seeing momentum in, over the last several years, some more than others, some growing faster than others. But as you can see, there's plenty of use cases here for our technology in both VR and AR. And so I'm going to talk just about a few of these today. Actually, what I'll do is I'll talk about the top 3 of these use cases that I see companies like Sixense and like other companies in the ecosystem are building real successful businesses around. And here they are. I would say, without question, healthcare is starting to pay real dividends for the early seeds that people have planted and the investments that they've put in here into the healthcare industry. It's just a fantastic fit for augmented reality and for virtual reality. And the stroke, concussion, training, PTSD, addiction, there's so many fantastic use cases that are absolutely going to be disrupted by the technologies that we're bringing to bear. Entertainment is another huge area, primarily in the location-based entertainment and arcades market. That's where there's a lot of momentum, and the final one is training. So I'm just going to zip into these now. Healthcare. So Sixense and Penumbra identified a problem they had. Actually, it was Penumbra's problem, and they came to Sixense with it. They had a problem to demonstrate the direct benefits of a very complex medical device. And so Sixense wanted to help them sell their improved stroke therapy device or stroke medical device. And it was difficult to explain the benefits. So Sixense created a multi-user environment where the salesperson could actually go into VR, into a virtual surgical environment, and they could show them the benefits of using the Penumbra equipment over the current equipment, which would actually save more lives and deliver better outcomes for the patients. So once these healthcare providers who knew what the benefits of clearing a blood clot in 5 minutes versus 30 minutes, once they could see that in VR and actually do it themselves, they understood the benefits. And this has led now to a very, very robust therapy for stroke recovery that is being built out right now by MVI Health, which is a partnership between Penumbra and Sixense. So that's an amazing gold strike. That's a home run, and we'll have more to talk about that particular product and opportunity later. But I do want to just talk about some others. So this one is not commercialized as far as the Penumbra opportunity is, but this is something I didn't think I would see for quite some time, and that was when I saw that they were using, scientists were using VR and also brain-computer interface to help people that were previously paralyzed to be able to walk again. And they did this through a surprising way. They first connected the patient's brain to computers, and they trained them to control avatars in a virtual world. And after they trained their brain to begin controlling the avatars successfully, and they became very proficient at that, then they added more challenging equipment like the exoskeleton and the overhang guides so that they could actually walk. And in half of the patients that tried this, they were actually able to regain some movement. And so this is still very early, but it's very exciting to see things like this where people's lives are being changed with the technology that we're working on. That, for me, is super exciting. I'm going to talk about the LBE space. There's a lot of momentum here. And one of my favorites that I saw over the last year was the Ubisoft escape rooms. Now, Ubisoft is obviously a fantastic game publisher. They know how to make beautiful, rich worlds that people just want to come and enjoy. And they've designed an escape room package that allows arcade operators anywhere in the world to download and access this, their rich worlds. And they charge just a licensing fee for this content, so the arcade operators don't even have to create anything. They can go get some Vives, they can go get some Oculuses, they can set them up in a blank room, and then they can actually sell people these amazing escape room experiences. And as you can see from the map there, this is from the website, it's at ubisoftescapegames.com. This is their arcade signups that they have either already live or rolling out this year. So you can see there's some clear momentum here, and there is one in the Bay Area. If you just search Ubisoft escape rooms, you can go try this out. I highly recommend it. It's super fun. Hologate is another great one. That they just tweeted their announcement that they've hit 2 million players, and this is also another arcade solution that is getting fantastic momentum. This is the menu at VR Zone in Shinjuku, and as you can see, they're anchored with Mario Kart, Godzilla, and they have two of the scariest experiences humans have ever experienced: Hospital Escape Terror and Extreme Courage Test down there on the far right. Those are absolutely horrifying. I almost died the first time, and I had to go do it again because it was so much fun. So if you're in Tokyo, you got to go check out Shinjuku Arcade. Sandbox is absolutely winning as well. They're the #1 on TripAdvisor in Hong Kong, beating Disneyland themselves there. And they've achieved this by doing, again, full presence systems in VR, which is just at the absolute bleeding edge of what's possible. These are haptic vests, tracked weapons, multi-user environments. This has all the candy that you can imagine to really give you an incredible experience. So just zipping right along, training is the third area I wanted to talk about. And Sixense and SimSpray, or Sixense and VR Sim have innovated together this product called SimSpray. And Honda actually was using it in some traditional ways and also a surprising way. Let me just play this video to explain.
Back in the mid-'80s when I started painting, the majority of it was hand applied. You know, the training was hands-on on production units. Now I look back on it and a lot of waste is involved in that type of training.
Most of our production facilities, robots do the painting. A robot may be down, so we still have to do some manual paintings. So we have a tool here called the Virtual Painter that helps a person understand kind of the basics of how to paint.
Before VR technology, we had to have actual physical assets. We would have to have students actually operate that equipment. Now it allows a student to learn the skills, but in a virtual way.
It looks like a paint booth. I mean, that's actually what the paint booths at Honda look like. Headset and the gun pick up everything that you do. You have to let off the trigger on the edges of the parts. You have to bend down. You have to keep your distance from the car and make sure all your angles and your flow is right.
You push a button and you have a clean part to start with. It gives you a lot of repetitions in a pretty short period of time, which you can't get in the production environment today.
More and more people are becoming familiar with in terms of entertainment and things outside of learning. So it allows us to leverage that familiarity to get them excited about learning and obtaining new skills in the workforce.
Yeah, I love what they were able to do there. And again, the fact that they were using it to recruit potential future employees was a bit surprising for me, but great to see them using that. But you can actually try that over in the Sixense booth, and you can actually become an expert sprayer. Okay, maybe not expert, but pretty good by the end of one session. And then obviously by the time you finish the training course, you'd be an expert. This is another amazing training simulation. So this is for welding, and if anybody has seen a cooler VR helmet than this one, I'd like to see it because this is really cool. It's my favorite. Anyway, this actually is training people in colleges and trade schools and at the manufacturers themselves. Lincoln Electric, which creates welding machines, they've developed with Sixense and with VR Sim this Vertex system, and it reduces training costs. This is actually live today in many vocational education and colleges, and it's teaching people in a safer environment, in a faster environment, and it's actually increasing the rate of certification, which is obviously the goal of any such training. I'm going to just play this video, but I'm going to stop it about a third of the way through.
Now more than ever, manufacturers are looking for a new generation of highly skilled welders. Preparing this new generation is the challenge for every educator involved in welding training. Virtual reality trainers are proven to be an effective tool in the training process. Vertex training systems from Lincoln Electric bridge the gap between the classroom and the welding booth. Lincoln Electric is helping educators prepare a better welding workforce for the future of manufacturing. Our line of Vertex virtual reality training systems includes 3 models, each aimed at specific training programs. Each system is designed to simulate the sights, sounds, and technique of welding to help students develop dexterity and muscle memory. And it's all done in a way that saves costs associated with raw materials, wire, and shielding gas used in the actual welding process.
All right, you can find that rest of that video up on our website. Apologies, timer says I gotta go. But anyway, and actually you can try that welding simulation trainer in our booth over there. I welcome you to try it, it's fantastic. Then 360 video, I was talking about that it's actually a bit of a problem in that it's not very natural. We innovated in a project at Vive called 7 Miracles. We innovated several ways to get around that. One we called 360 Plus, which frees up the user's headset. This was actually another technique which allows full presence in a cinematic story by combining photogrammetry for the environment and motion and performance capture, volumetric performance capture for the actors. And you blend those two together and you create a full presence 6 degree of freedom scene. And we did that throughout this story. So all I wanted to point out about this is that is the way to really create high definition, full presence storytelling. And the same thing goes for enterprise training because you can have a much richer and much more impactful experience that way. XR research, many of us are challenged to show what kind of data backs up XR effectiveness. I'm just going to say that I've done a lot of research over the last several years and funded and helped to support a lot of research. I think my favorite was a meta-analysis done across about 30 VR studies. And the bottom line of that meta-analysis was the desktop VR interventions, which is again premium VR with room scale, produces significant positive effect on learning outcomes and knowledge gain. So there's a lot of research out there. If you follow up with me, I'm happy to give you some more of those. Today we just looked at these 3 areas in the overall XR playing field. And as you can see, there's still 47 more that I didn't talk about today. Maybe that'll be for the next talk if they give us a bit more time. Anyway, it's exciting to be here pioneering immersive content with all of you. please let me know if I can help you in any way. I do not have time for questions, but thank you very much for coming.